1857 revolt. Who was the British commanding officer at बैरकपुर? बैरकपुर में कौन ऑफिसर थे? तो हर्षे थे, लेफ्टिनेंट जॉन बेनेट हर्षे was British commanding officer at बैरकपुर during revolt of 1857. बैरकपुर, West Bengal was the site where Mangal Pandey initiated resistance on 29 March 1857. Henry Lawrence was British resident at Lucknow during revolt. Colonel Finnis was killed at Meerut uprising. Hugh Wheeler was in command at Kanpur, was defeated by Nana Sahab forces. Okay, who made Allahabad the emergency headquarters in 1857? Lord Canning. और लियाकत अली इलाहाबाद से ही लड़ रहे थे ब्रिटिशर्स से. Lord Canning declared Allahabad, now Prayagraj, emergency headquarters in 1857 to manage British military responses against rebels. Allahabad was a strategic British stronghold due to its central location and presence of military cantonments. ठीक. Lord Cornwallis 1793 to 1805 introduced permanent settlement in Bengal. Lord Wellesley 1798 to 1805 known for the subsidiary alliance policy. Lord William Benedict abolished sati and introduced English education. Lord Macaulay वाला मामला. Who was the British Prime Minister during the revolt of 1857? Palmerston. Winston Palmerston. Henry John Temple III. Winston Palmerston was the British Prime Minister during the revolt of 1857. His tenure was 1855 to 1858, फिर 1859 to 1865. विंस्टन चर्चिल जो थे वो ब्रिटिश पीएम थे वर्ल्ड वार 2 के दौरान. क्लेमेंट एटली ब्रिटिश पीएम हु ग्रांटेड इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस 1947. विलियम गेल्डस्टोन ब्रिटिश पीएम इन लेटर पीरियड बट नॉट ड्यूरिंग 1857. Whose name among the following is not associated with revolt of 1857? Colonel St. Leger, Lieutenant Colonel Gibbs, Colonel Wallace. None of the names listed play a significant role in 1857. Sir Colin Campbell retook Kanpur and Lucknow. Major General Non Nicholson recaptured Delhi. Henry Lawrence defended Lucknow. Not associated. तो ये सारे लोग associated हैं. What was the main cause of the failure of revolt of 1857? Lack of Hindu-Muslim unity, lack of common strategy and central organization. ठीक, ये सारे कारण तो थे लेकिन सबसे मेन कारण यही था. Revolt of 1857 lacked centralized leadership, coordination and unifying ideology. Rebels had local grievances but no national strategy. Different regions had different leaders जैसे रानी लक्ष्मीबाई झांसी, नाना साहब कानपुर, कुंवर सिंह जगदीशपुर, लियाकत अली इलाहाबाद, मौलवी अहमदुल्ला फैजाबाद और बख्त खान मतलब दिल्ली में ही थे. और कौन मतलब दत्त मनीराम दत्त असम, कौशल सिंह औवा, कौशल सिंह नाम था इनका, कुछ और नाम था, ऐसे कुछ नाम था. The first freedom struggle of 1857 failed because lack of unity among Indian सिपाही. सही है. Native king supported the British. सही है. British soldier were better occupied. ये सारी चीज़ें सही हैं. देखिए, lack of unity, many सिपाहीs found for local grievances, fought for local grievances, for not for national independence. Native rulers support for the British. Many rulers such as Sindhia of Gwalior, Holkar of Indore and Nizam of Hyderabad helped British. British military superiority. The British had better weapons, disciplined troops and reinforcements from England. Which of the following were reason for the failure of revolt of 1857? Military superiority of the British. सही है. Rebels did not have a unified program and ideology. सही है. There was a lack of support from all sections of society. मतलब all sections से नहीं था लेकिन लगभग था. British had superior weapons, modern war strategies, and fresh troops from England. Revolt lacked a unifying ideology beyond expelling the British. Many sections of society, including landlords and the middle class, did not support rebellion. British were able to suppress the uprising of 1857 in Rajput state because local Rajput rulers did not support revolutionaries. British were able to suppress the uprising of 1857 in Rajput state because local Rajput rulers did not support revolutionaries. ठीक, many Rajput rulers such as rulers of Jaipur, Jodhpur and Udaipur remained loyal to the British. They saw the revolt as a threat to their own authority and privileges under British rule. Educated Indians initially remained neutral, believing British rule would modernize India. There was a lack of coordination among soldiers in different areas. ठीक, John Bennett Hersey was British commander at Barakpur during 1857 revolt. Lord Canning made Allahabad the emergency headquarters in 1857. Viscount Palmerston was the British Prime Minister during revolt of 1857. The lack of common strategy was the biggest reason for revolt's failure. Native rulers like Scindia and Holkar supported the British, contributed in rebellion suppression. British military had better weapons, strategy and reinforcement. Which of the following British officers lost their lives in Lucknow? तो ये नील हैवलॉक और लॉरेंस, ये तीन लोगों ने, ये निकोलसन तो दिल्ली को जीता था, नील हैवलॉक और लॉरेंस ये तीनों लोगों की डेथ हुई थी. निकोलसन डाइड इन सितंबर 1857 ड्यूरिंग ब्रिटिश रिकैप्चर ऑफ दिल्ली. General Neil killed in Lucknow while defending British presidency. Major Havelock died of illness after retaking Lucknow from rebels. Sir Henry Lawrence killed during siege of Lucknow, July 1857. Siege of Lucknow, June to November 1857 was a major event in the rebellion where British forces, led by Lawrence and Havelock, resisted Indian forces under Begum Hazrat Mahal. The first war of independence in 1857 failed to secure freedom from British government. सही है. The leader of Bahadur Shah Zafar did not have popular support. Most of the Indian rulers of important states shied away from struggle. ये दोनों सही और explanation भी सही है. The revolt of 1857 failed due to the multiple reasons. One of the biggest being the lack of support from many Indian rulers. Bahadur Shah Zafar, though declared Emperor of Hindustan, was a symbolic leader with no real command over rebel forces. Many native rulers, जैसे Scindia of Gwalior, Holkar of Indore, Nizam of Hyderabad, supported British rather than rebels. British successfully isolated the rebels by ensuring loyalty from many princely states. Rani Lakshmibai, Nana Sahib Begum, Hazrat Mahal fought fiercely but without a centralized command. The rebellion lacked coordination. Who called the revolt of 1857 a conspiracy? T.R. Holmes ने कहा था कि एक कॉन्स्पिरेसी है. T.R. Holmes, a British historian, called revolt of 1857 a conspiracy rather than a popular uprising. He believed that mutiny was planned rebellion by Indian rulers and military leaders to overthrow British rule. T.R. Holmes ने कहा. Many British officials, including Sir John Lawrence and James Outram, also viewed the revolt as a military mutiny rather than a national war. British historians downplayed the rebellion to maintain the legitimacy of British rule. Indian historians, especially nationalists like Savarkar, viewed it as a first war of liberation. General John Nicholson died in Delhi. General Neil Major Havoc or Sir Henry Lawrence were killed during siege of Lucknow. In 1857, revolt failed due to lack of leadership and support from Indian rulers. T.R. Holmes considered revolt of 1857 a conspiracy, while Indian historians saw it as a freedom struggle. British narrative labeled a mere mutiny, while Indian nationalists called First War of Independence. Modern historian who called the revolt of 1857 as फर्स्ट वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस वी डी सावरकर ने, ठीक, वी डी सावरकर ने क्या किया, फर्स्ट वॉर ऑफ इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस. मजुमदार, नॉट ए नेशनल वॉर बट ए सिपाही म्यूटनी, ये नहीं कहा था. एसेंशियल रिवोल्ट ऑफ 1857 हैड एलिमेंट्स ऑफ नेशनलिज्म, ठीक. होम्स कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन सिविलाइजेशन एंड बारबेरिज्म. वी डी सावरकर इन हिज बुक इंडियन वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस 1857 described the revolt of 1857 as first war of independence and argued that it was a well-planned movement against British rule. The perspective influenced later nationalist movement and freedom fighters. Other historian views Savarkar books was banned by British as it was seen promoting nationalism. Many British historians dismissed it a mere military mutiny, not a national uprising. शायद कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन सिविलाइजेशन, ये रसेल ने कहा था, होम्स ने नहीं, रसेल्स ने कहा. हु टर्म्ड द अपराइजिंग ऑफ 1857 एज फर्स्ट वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस? वी डी सावरकर. वी ए स्मिथ एंड पी ई रॉबर्ट्स वेर ब्रिटिश हिस्टोरियन who saw the revolt of 1857 as a mere sepoy mutiny. Savarkar challenged this view and argued that it was a planned united effort against British imperialism. He highlighted the role of various Indian rulers and sepoys in the struggle against British rule. The terminology of First War of Independence was later adopted by Indian nationalists, including leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru. Even Karl Marx, writing in British newspapers, saw it as a national uprising against colonial exploitation. The uprising of 1857 was described as the first Indian War of Independence by V. D. Savarkar. V. D. Savarkar book 1909 gave the term First War of Independence to 1857 revolt. Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Dadabhai Naoroji focused more on economic and political exploitation by British rather than describing 1857 as a war of independence. The official historian of Indian freedom struggle was एसन सेन. एसन सेन को मतलब ऑफिशियली एकदम वो किया गया. एसन सेन was an eminent historian whose book 1857 was published in 1957. He gave a balanced perspective, acknowledging that while the revolt had elements of nationalism, it was not fully organized national movement. His work is considered an official account of 1857 revolt by many academic institutions. The first Indian to write in the Indian language on the cause of uprising of 1857 was Sayyid Ahmad Khan. Sayyid Ahmad Khan wrote Asbab-e Bagawat-e-Hind, Causes of Indian Revolution in 1859. Sayyid Ahmad Khan. His book was an analytical study for reason behind the revolt. He argued that British policies rather than religious factors were responsible for the uprising. उन्होंने British policies को दोषी माना. The British initially blamed the revolt on religious tension, but Khan's book provided the socio-political analysis. Later, Sayyid Ahmad Khan founded the Aligarh movement advocating modern education for Muslims. The statement, the so-called First National War of Independence, was neither first nor national, nor a war of independence, is associated with R.C. Majumdar. मतलब इन्होंने क्या कहा, आर.सी. मजुमदार, एसन सेन जी ने तो कहा कि ये नेशनल एलिमेंट थे, एलिमेंट्स ऑफ नेशनलिज्म था, ठीक. लेकिन आर.सी. मजुमदार ने क्या कहा कि ये सो कॉल्ड नेशनलिज्म था, अरे सॉरी, सो कॉल्ड फर्स्ट नेशनल वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस वॉज नाइदर फर्स्ट नॉर नेशनल नॉर ए वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस, ठीक. Not a national war, only a localized mutiny. Essence and revolt had national elements. 1857 इन्होंने लिखा। वीर सावरकर वॉर ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस लिखा। R.C. Majumdar rejected the idea that 1857 revolt was a national movement. He stated that it was primarily a military rebellion with limited participation from other sections of society. He wrote Sepoy Mutiny and Revolt of 1857. Who wrote, "It is difficult to avoid the conclusion that the so-called First National War of Independence of 1857 is neither first nor national nor a war of independence." R.C. Majumdar ने कहा। Majumdar argued that the large part of Indians remained unaffected and many Indians' rules supported the British. His argument was that there was no national consciousness at that time and different groups fought for their own interest. His argument was that there was no national consciousness at the time and different groups fought for their own interest. Who was a prominent Indian historian who did not accept the 1857 revolt as a revolution? R.C. Majumdar refused to recognize 1857 revolt as a revolution because it lacked unity and did not involve all the India. Unlike Savarkar, who saw it as the first independence war, Majumdar focused on its localized nature. V.D. Savarkar called 1857 the first war of independence. In his book The Indian War of Independence, S.N. Sen wrote the official account 1857 in 1957. Syed Ahmad Khan was the first Indian to analyze the revolt of an Indian in Indian language, Urdu, in Asbab ए बगावते हिंद. सर सैयद अहमद खान ने असबाब ए बगावते हिंद. ठीक. R.C. Majumdar rejected the idea of calling 1857 a national movement and termed it military mutiny. Which one of the following conception is true about revolt of 1857? It gave a death blow to the system of East India Company's rule in India. हाँ, क्योंकि 1858 के बाद जो एक्ट आया उसके बाद जो है मतलब ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का राज खत्म हो गया, ब्रिटिश वो आ गई. It gave a death blow to the system of ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनीज रूल इन इंडिया. ठीक. अब देखते हैं. Indian historians have described it as an Indian mutiny. Incorrect. Indian historian like V.D. Savarkar called the first war of independence, while R.C. Majumdar saw it as a military revolt. British historian like John Lawrence called it a mutiny to delegitimize it. British historians have described it as a war of independence. नहीं. Most British historians labeled it as Sepoy mutiny or insurrection rather than a war of independence. V.D. Savarkar and S.N. Sen saw it as a war of freedom. It was the improvement of administrative machinery in India. Incorrect, though administrative changes occurred post 1857. The primary aim of the revolt was not administrative improvement but resistance against British rule. The revolt of 1857 ended the rule of East India Company and led the direct control of India by British Crown under Government of India Act 1858. Queen Victoria's proclamation on 1st November 1858 transferred power from the company of the British monarchy. The British realized that administrative changes were needed to prevent future revolts, leading to a shift in policies, including requirement of loyal communities in the army and non-interference in social religious matters. When did Queen Victoria declare the taking over of Indian administration under British Crown? 1 November 1858. When did Queen Victoria declare the taking over of 1 नवंबर लॉर्ड कैनिंग इलाहाबाद में ये हुआ था 1 नवंबर 1858. On 1st November 1858, Queen Victoria issued the Proclamation of 1858, known as Queen's Proclamation. Though through Lord Canning at Allahabad, it formally ended the rule of East India Company and placed India under direct British rule. Promises of proclamation: no further annexation of Indian princely state, equal protection under law of Indians and Europeans, non-interference in religious and social custom. Secretary of State for India was appointed to oversee Indian administration. ठीक. Indians were assured of many things in the declaration of Queen Victoria in 1858. Which among the following assurance was fulfilled by the British government? Policy of annexation will be abandoned. बिल्कुल सही. Lord Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse was abolished after 1858. The British stopped annexing Indian princely state, ensuring their continued rule under British suzerainty. However, other promises were only partially fulfilled or ignored. Equal treatment of Indians and Europeans never truly happened. Social and religious non-interference was not completely followed, so seen in later policies such as partition of Bengal 1905. What was where the object of Queen Victoria proclamation? To disclaim any intention to annex Indian states, सही है. To place the Indian administration under British crown, सही है. To regulate East India Company's trade with India, नहीं. The 1858 Act transferred Indian administration from East India Company to British Crown. Queen Victoria promised non-annexation of Indian state to gain the loyalty of native rulers. There was no mention of regulating East India Company trade because of company was abolished. Which of the following commission is associated with army reorganization after suppression of revolt of 1857? तो Peel Commission बना. Peel Commission 1862 was formed to reorganize the British Indian Army after 1857. क्या reduction of Indian representation in the army, increased recruitment of martial races like Sikh, Gurkha and Pathans, while soldiers from Awadh and Bihar who played key roles in 1857 were sidelined, strengthening the European soldier to maintain control. जैसे 1:2 कर दिया गया, बंगाल में 1:3 कर दिया गया, मद्रास और बॉम्बे वाले प्रोविंस में. पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन कब बनाया गया? सिविल सर्विसेज रिफॉर्म अंडर लॉर्ड डफरिन 1886 में पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन. हंटर कमीशन 1882. एजुकेशन रिफॉर्म इन इंडिया, प्राइमरी एजुकेशन. साइमन कमीशन प्रपोज्ड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म इन ब्रिटिश इंडिया बायकॉटेड बाय इंडियंस. हंटर कमीशन 1927 में. After the revolt of 1857, British recruited soldiers from which region? Gurkha, Sikh, Punjab in the north. Gurkha, Sikh, Punjab is in the north. Before 1857, British recruited heavily from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, Bengal army, but these regions led the revolt in 1857. After 1857, British policy shifted towards martial races, जैसे Gurkha, Sikh, Pathan, considered them more loyal. The divide and rule policy deepened division among Indian communities. The revolt of 1857 led the end of East India Company's rule and beginning of direct British rule under Crown. Peel Commission 1862 reorganized British Indian Army by favoring Sikh and Gurkha. Queen Victoria Proclamation 1858 promised non-annexation of state, but did not ensure equal treatment of Indians. Revolt led the policy shifts such as martial races theory and suppression of regions like Awadh and Bihar. ठीक, तो ये हम लोग का 1857 खत्म होता है. थैंक यू, बाय बाय.